Good morning, Perilous fans. This is Daniel Fox, designer and Zweihander RPG. Hey, it's an exciting morning. As you can see here, and I apologize for the shadow, I've got advanced copies of the new Zweihander RPG revised core rulebook from the new publisher, Andrews McMeel Publishing, which is super exciting. I literally just picked these up no less than 10 minutes ago. For my chief editor, Patty Rice. Patty, thank you so much for getting these to me. She sent me a couple of pictures yesterday, and I was on a work trip and was super excited to pick these up this morning. So I figured that I would record this to show everybody essentially what you're going to get if you pre-order the book at Target or Amazon or Walmart or Books A Million or Barnes & Noble or through Andrews McMeel Direct or through Simon & Schuster and all these awesome outlets that offer the book right now. Now I should note that this is not the quote version that Kickstarter backers will get. I'll have a separate unboxing video for that here in the coming weeks once the printer has that ready. So this is strictly for those who have pre-ordered the book that I believe is shipping on June 11th is when it hits the street in your local brick and mortar. So let's take a look. So I'm going to be doing this one-handed, or we're going to try to at least. I carried this into the office, and it's, these books are pretty heavy. I'm going to move the phone right here for a moment so you can see as I kind of get this open. Obviously, I'll check here to see if it's actually in frame. Yeah, you can see that it's wrapped in a paper, and mind you, this is just what they packaged it for me to pick up this morning. This is not the packaging you'll get in the mail. So, all right. Well, here it is. This is Zweihander, Perilous RPG revised core rulebook. The first thing that I immediately notice is that it's a totally different binding than the Kickstarter version. It's a rounded spine, which means it's got a rounded plank inside, and of course it has the kind of red and black stitching and the ribbon you're accustomed to. The other thing that kind of strikes me about this that's different than the Kickstarter version is that the colors are much brighter. You can actually see the figures on the front cover. That beautiful image by Jussi Alharo really pops and comes out in this version. I also feel it feels a little bit more sturdy. So this is super cool. I've actually got 2 copies of the book in here. What to do with the second copy, I'm not really sure yet. I think mostly I'm just kind of excited to show this to you guys today and really show it to the playtesters. Of course, you can see on the spine is Zweihander, Perilous RPG. My creative studio, Perilous Studios, and the new publisher, AMU, has their imprint at the bottom. The back obviously looks great. We have featured the Annie Awards because we did win in 2018 gold for Best Game and Product of the Year, which was super exciting. Obviously, we have Andrews McMeel Publishing logo there, who is our new publisher, and your USB naturally. And we've changed some of the language up on the back to kind of talk about why we did a revised edition, really kind of help color in essentially what you're getting inside this book. But I know you guys probably aren't too interested in the back cover. Let's actually look inside. I'm going to move the camera here a little bit again, so forgive me. Okay, so we've got Zweihander, Perilous RPG. So the first thing you'll see, colored red paper on the inside. Absolutely beautiful. And the pages are turning really nicely too. It just feels different than the original Kickstarter version. The paperweight feels nice. It's still like kind of matte color or matte feel, like kind of clay coloring. Obviously you're starting to see too, as you're seeing some within this. And once again, I apologize for the shadow for my phone. Try to get a better angle here. What you're seeing is some sepia tones come through because we actually went duo color as well as sepia throughout to kind of really help some of the tables pop. You're noticing some of the imagery change throughout the book. We've actually moved all of our full page images. In the previous versions, they were on the right-hand side. Now they're on the left-hand side, so you can have that beautiful image during the chapter introduction as you read it. And of course, you can see Dan Mandich's new cartouches that we have, all unique by chapter, which are super cool. So This version, obviously, has undergone another round of editing, as well as put in all of the errata from that we've discovered the past year since release. So that's super cool. Obviously, you know, as we say before, you know, this book we use singular they. So for those of you who have a problem with that, too bad. So obviously, the quad bullets as our layout artist Ken Duque, who actually did the layout on this book. These quad bullets are all in sepia to help them stand out. And you're noticing probably too that there's different padding between the paragraphs. We actually have kind of cleaned a lot of this up to make it more legible and give a little bit more breathing room between the columns. Once again, this is Milena Lakasevich, there's Dan Mandich, there's Juicy Alajaro, there's Tanner Yi, and there's myself, apparently a poorly version of myself, and kind of the image we kind of envisioned as we were playing Zweihander, or at least the image that Dan envisioned when he did this artwork. But yeah, this turned out really nice. These sepia tones really change the book end to end, including we used it underneath some of the headers too, very light. So it makes these kind of these sidebars and these examples stand out better. In the previous version, it was like gray with white lettering. I feel this colors really kind of help bring a lot of focus and really visual clarity to what you're seeing. And of course, you're seeing some new artwork. When Ken Duque went through this and redid the layout, we essentially took the original files that Milena had done and really just kind of envisioned, like, how can we plus this up? How can we make this more legible? How can we introduce some more breathing room, introduce some more artwork? How can we really kind of call to the fore all of Dan's beautiful artwork and make the book just easier to read? And so you'll see that throughout. We've redone all the layout. Once again, we've moved the full page images to the left. So as you read the beginning of the chapter, you have that image right there to kind of inspire you. We have, once again, the unique new cartouches that, I guess those, I don't know what those are precisely called, but it's always the first letter of the first word. But they're all unique throughout the book, which is super cool. So you're seeing already some changes probably in character creation in this example. Previously, we used to say race. We've changed that to ancestry. It seemed like a smart change. It's something we wanted to do the first time around, but we're a little concerned about continuity, I suppose. But you know, we really felt strongly about this, so we made the change in the entire book, and I think it just kind of feels a lot better. Up to and including, we used to have random dicing for sex, but we clearly understand that not everyone identifies as female or male. Some folk identify as intersex or transgender, and we didn't want those kind of inequalities in the real world to bleed through to the book. So we said, you know what, make the choice, talk to your game master about it, you address it with them. You make that choice, it's no longer random. That seemed like a really smart move for us, and it just felt right, I think, to everybody as well. So we're already seeing some difference in layout. Obviously, we've got kind of like a nested page for humans, like their background, their cartouche, the ancestral modifiers, their ancestral traits in the image. And this kind of carries on throughout the book for dwarves, for elves, for gnomes, for halflings, for ogres, and so on and so forth. Obviously, we do the same thing here for each of the archetypes: academic, commoner, knave, ranger, socialite, and warrior. And then, I mean, the layout just feels so much better. I mean, you know, that's one of the biggest quibbles I had about the first layout version of Zweihander. And chalk this up to kind of, you know, being first-time creators. This was just kind of like, we're like, this is how we should do it, and it'll look good. But, you know, obviously over the past year, we've had a lot of good feedback from the community. And I feel that bringing Ken Duque to the table to help us really kind of re-envision how we kind of look at Zweihander from a layout perspective has really changed this kind of next go-around. And this is the final version of Zweihander as we see it, because once again, this includes all errata, all changes it's included some house rules from our table that we decided to plug in. And you can find all those actually at grimoire.com/errata if you have the old version of the book. And keep in mind, the old version of the book is not unusable. It's still 99% usable. In fact, you can just go to grimoire.com/errata download the errata. It's like, I think 4 to 8 pages, and just print out and stuff it in the back of the book, your old book. It shouldn't impact your ability to play and use the old book whatsoever. When we looked at this revised edition, we didn't want to do a second edition. That didn't feel right. There wasn't enough, there wasn't enough years underneath of it to do a new edition, and it seems like a lot of RPGs quickly will rush to a new edition, and that was not the answer for us. Instead, we wanted to take what we had and plus it up, meaning we wanted to redo the layout. We wanted to really make it look much better and include all the errata. So one thing you were probably noticing is that the borders for the images in the old versions are gone, which allows the artwork to really pop and really kind of, once again, show the beautiful artwork Dan Mandich has done throughout this entire book. And it actually gives us much more room on the page, surprisingly, which is super cool. So just continue flipping through these professions, and as you well know, there are over there's over 72 regular professions. You're seeing some new artwork kind of come about. Obviously, we've managed to consolidate our professions across page spreads, which was super helpful, I feel, for players. So you're not flipping between multiple pages like this to find your profession. Here's the informer. I mean, look at that. That's just, that image right there is like easily over a quarter of the page. And still, the fidelity image was much better. One thing that Ken did a little different than we did in our previous version is that all the files were exported out in PSD format for print. So that actually resulted in a higher quality, a much higher quality print, or I should say, much higher quality imagery throughout. So that means we have 300 DPI plus images everywhere in the book. I'm just going to quickly kind of flip through all of these professions. Oh, there's the smuggler, fan favorite. Hans shot first, as Adam Koebel said in his first look at Zweihander. So you're now into the expert professions, which I'm pretty sure there are 46, and there's just some amazing artwork there. Obviously, you'll notice that we feature a lot of women and a lot of people of color because we recognize that the players around the table are more important than the, quote, characters in world. So we try to show different body types, we try to show different characters, we try to kind of flip some of the tropes on their ear, but really we want to reflect not the in-world characters so much as it is about like the people around the table wearing the clothing and wearing the trappings of the people in game. It's really kind of showing you in these costumes, in a sense, I guess you could say. That's one of the precepts behind our art design that Dan and I made very, very early on, and this carries throughout all of our entire line, through Zweihander, through Main Gauche. It'll carry through into Colonial Gothic. It'll carry through to Tetsubo, Perilous RPG, and a few other things we have kind of cooked up in the background. We're going to announce here a little bit later this year. But once again, we're featuring all manner of really cool artwork. So this brings us to the end of character creation. And then we head into skills. And once again, that really cool cartouche, or whatever you would call that, is featured there. And our page count came down just a tick, I believe. I'm going to flip through this pretty quickly because there's a couple things I want to show you. But yeah, our page count came down just a tick. But were I to compare this to the previous layout version, I mean, it's night and day difference. And I hope that everyone sees that too. But once again, we've kind of put far more artwork in here. We really wanted to bring a lot of the artwork we kind of left on the table through the previous version. And a lot of them are cartouches, obviously. But we have some new artwork in here as well. Nonetheless, we wanted to really kind of bring a lot of this forward because we just felt that we wanted to kind of do Diane a service, and really the people who bought the book too, to have like the best version of Zweihander they could possibly get their hands on. That's just chock-a-block full of imagery. Excuse me. I believe that the total number of images in the book now, there's 667 pages, I believe. I think our images are now up to 472. So there's I think there's like 2 to 3 images every 3 pages or something like that. So here's Hazards and Healing. Once again, we've got the full page artwork on the left, the cartouche on the right. Just absolutely beautiful. Just looks so different and awesome. In credit to Milena for doing the initial layout as well. I mean, she kind of set our brand standards moving forward for all of our layout. with the borders. Her suggestions were around header type, around how we kind of, what fonts we use, and we carry that forward. Even though Milena didn't necessarily work on this, oh, here's the ribbon. Even though Milena didn't work on this revised edition, she certainly deserves a lot of credit because she was instrumental in helping us understand like what we need to do from a print perspective. So now we're to the Grimoire, and obviously this looks totally different. We got this huge image over here on the left and our cartouche on the right. And this is where you start to see a couple of changes we've introduced. As an example, some people had some difficulty determining like, where does arcane magic start and where does divine magic start? So we pulled forward the artwork for all the arcane professions to kind of delineate that. And we've kind of cleaned up a lot of the images as well around those things. Obviously here we've got our divine magic, our 3 divine magic professions, and sepia tone kind of encircling those images. So you can have that kind of visual cue to say, oh yeah, this is for divine magic. So here's a change, an important change. It used to be 3 principles of magic for petty, lesser, and greater, but we discovered there's some confusion with that. So we broke out journalist, petty into generalist. That's the magic that everyone can use across the board when they first begin their game as Zweihander, if you are playing a spell casting profession, that is. So you'll see that carried through. We've already made changes to the character folio to reflect a lot of the errata changes in the book, which is cool. So yeah, so then obviously we go into journalist magic and we're flipping through, and there's our huge giant red ribbon, witch sight, one of my favorite spells in the game. I believe we actually changed the name of one of these spells in here too, one of the generalist ones, which was previously called Subdue. We changed it to Shut Eye. That's an important change because Subdue is now an action in combat that we added so you can knock people out and not kill them in the middle of a fight. An important kind of house rule we carried forward into this version, which once again, you can read about all the errata at grimoireperilous.com/errata. There's a download file that it links to Drive Through RPG. It's free, you don't pay any money. It's laid out in this same kind of layout with the borders. So once again, if you have the older version of Zweihander, and you're worried about your book being usable, it's not. It's absolutely not unusable. Just download the errata and stuff it in the back of your book, and that'll tell you precisely what you need to change. And if you're like me, what I did in my old versions of the book, I actually scribbled things out with permanent marker, or I used I think the whitening stuff where you kind of mark things out, because I have a tendency to like mark my books up. If you're anything like me, I mark all my books up everywhere, and I have tabs in it for places I go to often. But nonetheless, certainly, do what you feel is best for you. So we're still going through all the spells. We're now into prayers, the divine magic stuff. And it continues carrying through, and it's beautiful and amazing, and some really cool new artwork, as you can see here. Tables, once again, feel so much better, so much cleaner. We get our rituals here. That image now is like massively expanded, almost spans the entire left-hand pane of this page, which is cool. And once again, the fidelity of the imagery is just night and day difference. And really, credit to Andrews McMeel Publishing for partnering with really good printing shops overseas. This is why we can kind of have this amazing looking book and the quality that we had. It almost, I would say, almost better quality than the previous Kickstarter edition. It almost feels like it's just night and day difference. So credit to them, as well as my editor, Patty Rice. So here's the one thing that you'll notice that is totally different. So if we go back a page, you will notice first that it's the end of the Grimoire. So 349 essentially is the end of the player section of the book. There's actually a distinct delineation between the player section and the rest of the game, like Game Mastery, Bestiary, and Adventure, and Appendix. So we said, let's actually split the book in half physically with a giant color image of something. And we're like, well, naturally we have to use Dan Manditch's original Kickstarter cover for the delineation. So here's that huge middle page to say, this color plate separates player section from Game Master's section. So once again, many of you have been asking like for this imagery to show up on a cover. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to devalue the copies we had out there for Kickstarter. even though Dan Manditch's was the better selling cover on our original Kickstarter in 2017, I believe, 2016, we really wanted to carry this artwork forward, but we didn't want to like cheapen the fact that people have those copies out there. So we kind of included this image, and it just fits so well for that kind of, once again, splitting the book in half. And then we moved to the Game Master section, as I mentioned. Here's obviously, if you're a Game Master, this is basically your role. You're going to be juggling a lot of things, writing a lot of things down, holding ink, holding books. Just give us just a moment. Please give pause, or must give pause. So this is kind of me, I guess, in a sense, or any Game Master. This obviously is an original image by Dan Manditch, as is all the artwork. You know, all the artwork is done by one artist and one artist only, because it gives that continuity of feel and theme and flavor throughout it. So if you're anything like me as a Game Master, you're constantly juggling a lot of things, I think this image will really resonate with you. Obviously, we have our new cartouche up here for the beginning of the Game Mastery, and then we start to go into a lot of the themes of Game Mastery, which you've seen before. Talk about narrative structured time, secret tests, expanded combat rules, injuries, clarification on creature size, which was a huge bugaboo in the previous version. We actually, even though we talk about creature size in the previous version, we actually carry it forward into the monster layouts, which you're going to see shortly, which is vastly improved too. So you're not left guessing which monster is huge, which monster is small, which adds additional fury dice. You'll see that here in just a few moments once we move through the Game Mastery section. But nonetheless, you're just kind of seeing some of the wilderness travel stuff, which is always fun for us to run. I'm sure if you're playing Zweihander, you're using it as well. There's a little bit about reputation points and dealing damages to objects and traps, like traditional D&D-ish stuff that felt right to include. Here are some your petty and journalist magic manifestations. Obviously, those are kind of part and parcel to Zweihander. Malignancies, which happens for those who have the drawback of black temperament. As an example, if you are a Dark Disciple or a Necromancer, I believe, those will be there. Here's our kind of handful of magic items. The Beyond, which was featured here, which is this living painting of blood, which is super cool. There's the Manta Calculator, which unfortunately is not illustrated here. But we do have the Hammer of the God Emperor and the Horror Sun, which is like a massive old catapult with a really cool story. Motivations, obviously this is a lot of Game Master facing stuff. Talks about social intrigue and how to use that to set up really cool role-playing interactions that are not necessarily guided by dice, or guided by dice, but don't enact the result, meaning role-play still drives the exchange. Dice still have a part in it, but it doesn't necessarily determine success or failure. It's all up to players. Once again, we're back to madness, stress, fear, and terror. We begin to dive into like corruption. Oh, one real quick thing. Broken heart syndrome. This is something we kind of decided to use at our own table, essentially where characters can be, quote, scared to death or gain new drawbacks. And I'm sure you've read the errata, you've noticed like our drawbacks expanded from 9 to, I believe, 25. That's one important change in the book. So this speaks a little bit about how you can drive some of those new drawbacks for characters being scared to death, which is obviously pretty crippling, but fun stuff for a Game Master, and really kind of adds that thematic kind of grimdark feel to your game. Obviously, we have a lot of our mutations. We have, Moon Fever and Sanguine Thrall and Taints of Chaos and Corruption and mutations and stuff. And then here's where we start to dive into playing alternative races. Rather, ancestries. So our Aslan, which is our lizardmen, our Grendel, which are, in Warhammer terms, I guess it'd be a beastmen, but really this is kind of like the idea of like these mutated people who live in the woods, so to speak. We have our orcs, a clever play on orc, because there was always like a long time debate at our table, like, do you pluralize orc with S or do you not, which is appropriate? So in this, I just said, orcs, it gets singular or plural with an X. So obviously that carries forward our Skurzak, which would be kind of your ratmen, the people who live beneath the street. In Warhammer terms, I guess you call them Skaven. And then we have kind of a little bit more on world building, a little bit more on daemons, which all these daemons are featured in our new book, Mangaush, which is just now, I believe it just came up on Amazon for pre-order today, in fact. So you can probably, if you Google Mangaush, M-A-I-N-G-A-U-C-H-E, and then type in RPG after it, you will see it now on Drive Through RPG. And we actually have a crawl through that entire book in a separate YouTube video, so be sure to check that out. Then we kind of go into campaign seeds. These are drawn from my own world. These are from my own campaign world. These are basically ideas that can help drive you to create your own kind of worlds. Obviously, Zweihander, but I kind of envision it in the sense that it is Pathfinder to D&D in the same way as Zweihander is to Warhammer. It is an open source system for you to kind of create your own thing. And I kind of give you some ideas in these like 12 or so pages from campaign seeds for my own campaign worlds, and the new ones we've created as well, specific for this. One of my favorite, obviously, that I've ran for many, many years is Gangs of Gehabro. It's like if you ever seen the movie The Warriors, it's kind of like that. It's like these gangs are vying for control of this old city that's been built on top of another, that's built on top of another city. So it's kind of get this long, old world feel and influenced kind of by Mesopotamian roots. But in a sense, it's kind of like in a massive Egyptian city or Egyptian-inspired city in the southern part of my campaign world. And I wanted to carry that forward because it's a cool thing that my players have really loved. And it seemed right. Obviously, Lost Colony of Roanoke, which if you're familiar with American colonial history, you may know a little about that. In fact, some of this you may find in our new book, Colonial Gothic, which we've partnered with Richard Iorio of Rogue Games on. We just made an announcement for that not too long back. So here we come to the Bestiary. What you're seeing here, full page image on the left, cartouche details on the right. We've carried forward our damage dice by creature size, but we've also done it within each of the new layouts for our creatures. So it'll have the name of the creature, its size, and all the stats. And the credit is due to Ken here, because he really helped us re-envision how we look at our layouts for creatures now, introducing these lines that split these things up, consolidating information, using colored bars across the top to indicate primary and secondary attributes. Like this just feels so much better and cleaner and really kind of resonates, I feel, with that kind of newish design that Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has introduced. We kind of carried some of those principles of layout and really user design forward. We wanted the user experience to be significantly different. We wanted people to have a clear understanding of how to look at a creature, what belongs where, for attack profiles, to traits, to trappings. We wanted to really carry this forward throughout these kind of spreads and really make it more intuitive. You're also probably seeing that all these images are higher quality. Once again, credit due to Ken. When we exported all the files, everything came out 300 DPI plus. So we're just going to flip through all these crazy, awesome creatures, obviously critters throughout. We've got some primevals, the kind of smarter creatures, so to speak. They all kind of embody like a different form of sin, and they speak. I don't want to spoil anything because this is obviously like game master related stuff, so I'll leave it to them to explain to you the stories about that, or for your character to experience them in the campaign world. So no spoilers, so I'll stop with that. So we're continuing through the Bestiary. I mean, once again, more artwork, more consolidation of information, the images are tighter, the fidelity is better, the layout is cleaner, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it continues, and I think we're almost to the Bestiary, because this Bestiary I think is like 120 something pages. Like I think we stuffed in maybe 101 different monster types for you to fight. We did a full-on Bestiary. A lot of people, they say, "Gosh, I like Zweihander, but it's just huge. Like, why did you do that? Like, is that like a gimmick?" And part of it is, well, yes, it is partially a gimmick. It means Zweihander. It means two-handed sword in German. And the book itself is a good 4 pounds and requires 2 hands to carry it. So yeah, it is partially gimmick. But also, we wanted to include a player's guide, a DM's guide, and a monster manual on one book that was affordable. So as an example, if you look on Amazon, the cost of a player's handbook, a dungeon master's guide, and a monster manual, because all together it's like 997 pages, and it's about $89. So Zweihander is 667 pages, has more content than that, and it runs at $40 on Amazon right now. I think it retails at $65, but it's only $40 right now on Amazon and Target, Walmart, and other places too, and Barnes & Noble. So we really wanted to kind of like bring more of that forward. Plus, we wanted like production values that were equal to or rivaled current big book publishers. Our margins are obviously very slim because of that, but it's a choice we make because we want to give you, the purchaser and the players, the best value you can get. But once again, if you just really are like, Dan, I don't really want to pick up the whole Zweihander book, I'm just a player. The great news is that later this year we'll actually have pre-orders for a player's guide that is literally half the book, 360 pages long, more consumable, less expensive price point. We hear what you're saying. We're going to respond to that. But for game masters, we 100% recommend picking up just the revised core rulebook because you get everything all at once. But for players, you'll have your own version of Zweihander soon, but you can still buy this. I mean, obviously, it has everything that you will find in the player's guide in the Zweihander revised core rulebook. And then probably later this, I think towards summer, we're going to be working on a boxed starter set too. So we're trying to find basically kind of 3 ways to introduce Zweihander to new players, as well as current players, to provide some new content. So we're just kind of going back through a lot of the stuff on the Bestiary. You know, obviously we lean in heavily to the idea of like treasure, like traditional D&D tropish stuff, but we have like these really rich, interesting tables for the things that game masters could give out, like a lead brooch in the shape of a rose, empty wine bottles dressed in silver filigree. Like we do these kind of interesting descriptions of things you could find along the way or give out as a game master to players, including commodities. Obviously, this is our adventure, A Bitter Harvest. I'm going to flip through those very quickly. I don't want to spoil the adventure by any means, so I'm just going to flip forward because it's a really, really cool story about empowerment for women, about revenge. It's kind of riddled with these really gray, kind of interesting morality choices that I think players are really dig. If you're wanting to understand like what Zweihander RPG is really about, this adventure, which was really originally written by Theo Riches, and I adapted it for Zweihander with his permission, like it really helps explain precisely what Zweihander is about, and the themes. So without any other spoilers, I'm moving past that. We're now toward the appendix, which obviously we have a little bit more room on here, a little bit more breathing room for everything now for the game master, including that you can just tear out, or you can use the PDF and print out as you need, or just put it on a scanner and print it out yourself. But all these are meant to be usable by the game master easily. We've included a lot of breathing room in the gutter because we wanted, if somebody just wanted to tear it out, they can. I tear pages out of my books all the time. So I don't know if all people are like that, but I am. So nonetheless, we kind of left a lot of breathing room in the gutters for that. And if I had a pencil here, I'd show you it'd pass the pencil test, which means if you drop a pin in the middle, can you still read what's on either side? And it does. We spoke earlier about like some new actions in combat, which we carried forward. You'll notice subdue is there now, obviously. There's just a lot of things that we kind of carried forward that we wanted to put in this book that really need to be spelt out or made more clear, or new options for players to use in the game. So that's this is that consolidated table, which you as a game master can use. There's also one in the player section too in the very beginning, around I think page 210. And then obviously our character sheet concludes the book, our 4-page character sheet, and this really kick-ass index that Ken and layout editor at Andrews McNeil, Sienna, worked on. He was a mutual friend of our rules developer, Adam Rose. And then we conclude with this really cool advert. Chaos is not a pit, it is a ladder. It's for Main Gauche, a Grimoire Perilous supplement. Expand your Grimoire Perilous campaign world into a whole new realm of chaos with Main Gauche, an upcoming supplement to Zweihander Grimoire Perilous RPG. Using this expansion, you'll be able to add 68 new professions to your Grimoire Perilous game, easily integrate cinematic vehicle-based combat into encounters, use alchemy and witch science to gain deadly abilities, build fantastic machines like the Arkwright Cauldron and Rumble Butler, devote yourself as an occultist to forbidding gods, learn over 90 new chaos magic spells and their horrific manifestations, make soul-altering pacts for demonic gifts of unfettered power, build your own unique monsters and NPCs on the fly. Pre-order is available in late 2019, which they're actually available now on Amazon. It kind of came up, it just came up on Amazon not too long back. I was a little surprised, like, oh, well, guess it's there. So we need to start doing our marketing push. But the real value of Main Gouge, obviously, is that you can, especially for game masters, you can create all your own unique monsters and NPCs. But there's a lot of like player-facing stuff too. All of our books we intend to have player and game master facing. It just otherwise it just doesn't make sense. Like there needs to be something there for everybody. So that's it. That's Zweihander RPG Revised Edition, which you can pre-order now on Amazon. It releases on June 11th, I believe. And you can get this on Amazon. You can get this at Target.com. You can get this at Walmart. Get this at Simon & Schuster. You can get this at Barnes & Noble, your local brick and mortar. Pretty much everywhere at this point. Andrew's McMeal has a massive reach, and it's really helped us kind of get into new markets and grow at scale, and we're super excited for that. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't wait to show this to the playtesters. Nobody else has seen this except for me and the publisher. So I get to bring these to our Wednesday night game, and we can all like marvel at the difference in quality between the original Kickstarter version that won the ENAs for Best Game and Product of the Year, and now the revised core rulebook. So thank you all once again for tuning in. I'll have another video coming up here soon for another crawl through probably of the digital version of this. Until then, happy gaming and thank you.